Will you please introduce yourself?
My name is Nona Cowan. I'm 70 years old. I was born in Honey, Colorado. I was also raised in Trinidad, Colorado. My family structure, I had an alcoholic father. Grew up very poor, but I had a wonderful Christian loving mother.
What kind of educational experiences did you have?
I graduated from high school.
And what does your career history look like? Like, what kind of jobs have you had?
I was secretary for years. I've waited tables. I've fed cows.
When did you first become aware that some people viewed the older group a little bit differently? Mm-hmm.
Well, personally, I noticed when I started getting old and I had to start asking for help, and they sure don't have the patience to put up with us when we get to old and have to start asking for help.
Okay. How did this knowledge affect you?
It pissed me off.
What do you think is most important information that people who are not of your age group need to know about you? Yeah. Like, no, that was the patience.
Okay, what else? Ask me again.
What do you think is the most important information that people of my age need to know about your age group?
That we're getting old and we do need help. And they need to start looking out for us more instead of always wanting us to do things for them.
Okay. What was your first personal experience with discrimination because of you being in the older group? That was where you talked about that. Mm-hmm.
About not having patience when we get old? Is that what we were talking about?
No, we were kind of talking about how 65 seems young.
Oh, yeah. I know people think that 65 and 70 is young, but we've walked many, many miles in these old shoes. And people just don't understand. They think that, we ought to just be getting along like we were, and we can't.
Okay. Do any other experiences with discrimination stand out in your mind? I know that Perryton is a very Hispanic culture. Is there any discrimination that you have had with them?
I know they're pretty pushy. When I was at the grocery store one day and I was standing in line, it was very busy, and I had a basket full, and there was a lady that just had a bag of Cheetos, and she just thought she was going to run right up in front of me, and it was basically a Mexican store, and crowd in front of me, and it didn't happen. If she would have asked me kindly, I just have this bag, I would have gladly let her, but you don't just push in front of me because you're Mexican and I'm white.
Okay. How do you handle discrimination, biases, and prejudice?
I don't handle them real well. I don't like it. I hate having hard feelings against anyone. I don't care what color or race they are.
How would you say that you experience some sort of bias, discrimination, or insensitivity? Do you see it once a week, once a day, more, less? That you're discriminated against?
I don't. I'm really not that I know of.
Give an example of the kinds of prejudice you encounter that you think is most harmful to your age group. So that was, again, where we talked about the health and that maybe sometimes we don't understand.
And don't have patience. Don't have patience with us.
Okay. How would you characterize your relationship with people of other races, of which we talked are the Hispanics here? So how would you characterize the relationship with them? Is it strictly professional, personal, just when you see them out in town?
Oh, I have multiple Hispanic friends.
Okay.
I have a bunch of them. I have 2 that work for me. I love them to pieces. I don't have a problem with them as long as they're on the up and up.
And we kind of talked about the black culture. Can you expand on that a little?
I get real aggravated at lazy people that just want to sit around with their hand out and expecting us to take care of them when they're perfectly capable of getting out and working and taking care of themselves, and quit having children out of wedlock all the time, and we have to take care of them, and that hacks me off.
And you did mention that is not just the black culture group.
No,
it's
that's
with anybody.
anybody that's just too lazy to get up and work and expect us to take care of them.
Okay. What was the most valuable lesson you learned from your parents, grandparents, or other relatives about being different from other people?
I was always raised, my mother always taught us kids to never borrow. If you didn't have the money to pay for it, you didn't need it. And if you were digging ditches for an honest day's living, that was perfectly fine.
What was her attitude about other racial groups?
My mother never had a racial bone in her body. Mother never spoke ill of anyone, ever. She was just a wonderful person.
What recommendations do you have for counselors who wish to work effectively with persons from your group? You talked about us having patience and about the younger generation and what they know.
Well, like I told you, I just think that being a parent, that you're up against it from the time you start raising your children, because they don't understand your old ways, because you're always older than they are. And they always think that you're so old-fashioned and get with it, Mom. And I mean, it just keeps going on and on and on the older you get. It's just the way it is.
Okay. You also talked about how sometimes the younger generation thinks that they know it all.
Oh, they do. They think they know what's best for you. I don't care. They always think they know what's best for you, and they don't always know. They think they do, but they don't.
Okay. So from a counselor's perspective, if you were to go work with a counselor, is there anything that you would want to see from them supporting what you said?
Well, I'll tell you a little story. My daughter has her master's degree in counseling. And when she first started out, she always, she would just start looking at me, and I told her right off at the bat, don't ever try and analyze your mama, because it won't work. So.
All right. Well, Nona, thank you for your time.
You're welcome.